Hi, I'm Linda Mechner, here with Why Eating Healthy is Not Enough. I'm here today with Lisa Goldberg, nutritionist and behavior and lifestyle coach. Lisa, do you want to share about how you got into doing the work you do and what inspired you on this career path?
Yeah, no, absolutely. First of all, I want to say it's great to be here. I love sharing my message and truthfully helping people because what I do as a nutritionist and behavior and lifestyle coach is really help people change their habits, behaviors, and mindset around food and eating. Because often what needs to change is not just people's relationship with food, but their relationship with themselves. And how I got started in the work that I do is because, you know, way back when I first started college, I gained the freshman 20 in like the first 2 months of school. And I learned what it was like to live in a body that felt like it wasn't my own and that I wasn't really comfortable in. And for probably like the first year at school, it's like I lost 15 pounds, I gained it back. I lost 15 pounds, I gained it back because the way I was losing it was either on Slim Fast or the Cambridge diet or the Stewardess diet or some crazy quick weight loss diet that wasn't a sustainable way of living. I didn't just start eating right or eating healthy. I would, quote unquote, be good for the time I was on the diet. And then when I lost the weight, it was like, okay, now, and I just went back to doing what I was doing, which clearly, kept me yo-yo dieting. So fast forward, I finally, at the end of my freshman year, joined a gym. I started to work out. I started to pay attention to food. I started to be really mindful about what I was eating. I kind of got off the crazy diets and I really just paid attention to what was healthy and felt good in my body. And so, I maintained my weight for the rest of my college career, but then I moved in with two roommates when I moved into the city, and the cycle started again because my behaviors of going out, eating too much, eating late at night, the whole thing started. So I spent, quite a few years in my early 20s reliving yo-yo dieting. And it wasn't until I was in my late 20s where I changed careers. I became a personal trainer and I went back to school for a master's degree in clinical nutrition that I really kind of set my path of really being more mindful and stopping the habits and behaviors that kind of kept me, gaining and losing weight. And I think the bigger part of that was I kind of never forget, even to this day, I never forget how terrible I felt in my body. I didn't go out with my friends. I stayed home. I hated the way my clothes looked on. So I chose to stay home versus go out. And that's the stuff that I stay very connected to because I know I have a choice as to whether I feel that way again or not. And
Right.
so what inspired me to really start, working with clients, as a nutritionist, when I was in school, we were taught to really, focus on protein, fat, carbs, calories, which is important. But at the end of the day, what I've noticed is it's really about mindset and mindfulness and paying attention to what's true physical hunger. And what I've discovered in the years of the work that I've been working with my clients who really struggle with emotional eating and yo-yo dieting, like they use food for so many things that have nothing to do with being physically hungry, it's become like their coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
What I found is like a lot of people who struggle have a lack of self-worth and a lack of self-love and a lack of self-esteem, right? And so there's an inner voice that somehow believes, it's a subconscious thought, that they don't really deserve to feel better, or they believe that they're not capable. They've been on so many diets and they don't believe that they're capable of actually losing the weight and keeping it off. So often I speak to people who call me on the phone and want to work with me or work in my group, and what I hear often is, I feel hopeless.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's a common thing, especially for people who have tried and failed a lot of times. They feel like, in my experience, a lot of times people are afraid to try again because they've had so many failures. And at some level, they know that every failure comes back with more. um, Out of curiosity, how many years were you in that cycle before you figured out how to break out of it?
Well, like I said, it was like my first year, of college, because I was a normal weight kid, right? And then all of a sudden I was living in a body that was really unfamiliar to me, and it felt super uncomfortable. And then I was able to maintain that weight from my sophomore year on because I started really getting into fitness, and I was super mindful about what I ate, right? Like there was a whole bunch of foods that I cut out. Um, and then I'd say for 3 or 4 years or 5 years after that, when I started living in the city and I had a different social life, right? You know, just being in Manhattan, and having 2 roommates, we were out all the time. We were going out for dinner all the time. I was back to eating late at night, where there was a point where I stopped doing that. So I started to perpetuate some old habits, right?
Mm.
So I wasn't somebody who struggled with weight for my whole entire life. I mean, so for a lot of people that I work with, I have clients that struggled with weight since they were, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 years old. So
Right.
that wasn't my story. How I really connect with my clients is I understand what it's like to live in a body you're not comfortable in. I understand their dieter's mentality. They have a dieter's way of thinking. They're in and they're off. It's very black and white. They're good or they're bad,
Hmm.
right? They're either in or they're out. And I hear often, if I wasn't perfect, if I didn't have a perfect day, if I ate something I wish I didn't, then I'd be like, oh, what the heck, I blew it, right? And so you kind of, go crazy eating for the rest of the day. So I can relate to that way of thinking because that was me for a period of time.
Right.
So, right. So I try to kind of get them out of that mindset.
Right. And so to bring it back to why eating healthy is not enough. So it's not really, it sounds like what you're saying is you don't work with them on the food stuff as much as the emotional pieces, or is it sort of 50-50, like here's what to eat and let's talk about the emotions when they come up?
It's actually twofold, because as a nutritionist, I want my clients to be healthy humans. And I
Hmm.
feel like people don't even know how to eat anymore because they felt so many years restricting and depriving for weight loss. So what I do is I look at somebody's life, right? Because everybody's life is different, whether you're a young mom with kids, whether you're retired, whether you work from home, whether, you work or you don't work at all. So everybody's life is different. So, and it's really important that you like what you eat. I don't want my clients eating anything just because they think it'll help them lose weight. So it's really a matter of teaching somebody, and I do believe in, low glycemic index eating. I'm not carb phobic. My clients lose weight by eating brown rice and quinoa and, some, whole grain bread, at breakfast or perhaps on a sandwich at lunch. I mean, you'd be shocked as to how many clients look at me and be like, I can eat a sandwich? Like, yes, you can eat a sandwich and still lose weight. And so with my process is, it's not biggest loser numbers weight loss, but it is slow and steady. And just this past week, and I hear it all the time, but from 2 different clients this week, I hear it feels better. It feels sustainable. They're losing weight, but it's not these huge numbers, but they feel better because they're giving themselves permission to eat without the guilt.
Right. It's amazing sometimes how the things that tend to be counterintuitive for chronic dieters are actually the things that help bring them success in the end. And it is very rewarding when people can do the things that they thought they would never be allowed to do again, and it actually works better than not doing it.
Right. Well, I find so many people think the only way they're going to lose weight is if they cut out all these foods, if they have to eat plain. So many people, they stay home, like they won't socialize with friends because they think if I socialize with friends, then I don't have any control, so and that's all mindset. So what
Right.
I teach my clients is, one, you have total control unless somebody's tied you to a chair and is putting food in your mouth. Um, but people tend to give their control away to the food and they take it away from themselves. And so it's all mindset. People are 100% capable of making new and better decisions as to how to feed themselves. They're 100% capable of getting in touch with what's true physical hunger, which I call stomach hunger,
Mhm.
versus emotional hunger, which is head hunger. So
Right.
stomach hunger is, we declare when we're hungry. I'm hungry. Like we know it. Our bodies are asking for food. Head hunger is, I feel like, I think I feel like eating. right? And so people tend to be eating feelings, even if that feeling is boredom, right? Even if that feeling is them just being a little bit bored or procrastinating on a project or just pure habit.
Right. Yeah, so true. So what are some of the biggest challenges you see your clients facing in terms of making the changes that they need to make?
Well, some of their challenges is their own mind, right? They're wired in a certain way, so we have to kind of rewire their brains. So other challenges that people have is they don't have support from anybody, so they don't have any family support or from their spouse or their partner, which makes it a little bit more challenging. Some people are busy, but busy is just an excuse, I tell them, because we all make time for what's important to us. So if you think about what stops you. So if you're listening to this, think about what excuses, what do you tell yourself about why you can't make better choices, about why you can't stop eating when you're content versus full, about why you have to eat at night when you're not physically hungry. Think about, because I spend a lot of time helping people get clear with that, on that, what that voice is in their head, because our actions will follow our thoughts, right? And if you tell yourself that you can't, I can't do this, I can't do this, I'm not able to do this, I won't be able to, then you just won't, right? You're disabling yourself, and your actions aren't aligned with what you say you want.
Right. So let me ask you this. What do you do when you have a client who is doing everything right, or at least like 90% of the time is following the program as it's described, and they're not seeing results? Because that's one of the things that happens really commonly. Like, people really get on board. And that's part of the reason for this entire summit is, not for the people who, just can't get it together. Although, we're all human. We all struggle in so many ways. But, like when we're eating, chips and ice cream, multiple times a day, then if we don't get results, we're like, okay, well, that's not surprising. But then when we really do pull out the stops, we do our best effort and we don't get results, that's when it's like, what the heck is going on? And I'd love for you to speak to that a little bit. Like, when people are really doing it right, they're really dialing it in, where do you go from there?
So what I do with the clients, because yes, that does happen often, where people are kind of just like totally on board. They're sending me their food records. I see what they're eating. I see how much they're eating, and I believe they're, above board. Then I look at other avenues. Then I look at, do they have food sensitivities? Because you could be eating healthy food, but it's not the right food for your body. I look at, we talk about maybe testing your insulin levels, a couple of times a day for a couple of weeks to see if maybe, the foods that you're eating is, affecting your blood sugar in not the right way. I look at, maybe you have, when it comes to the sensitivities, then we try something new. Then, I'm working with a client right now. We took out some gluten and some dairy, right? And she's seeing results. Right. So then, as a clinical nutritionist, metabolically, sometimes I'll send somebody to their doctor for a blood test. It could be you're low in some nutrients, you're low in vitamin D, you're low in some of your B vitamins, right? You're low in iron. So you could be a little nutrient deficient, right? And metabolically, your body's not functioning as it should, and you're having trouble releasing the weight. So, oftentimes with the people that I work with, it's a lot of times it's the emotional part, but then if that's not what's going on, because after a succession of time, if their weight is staying the same and nothing's going on, then I need to look at, other avenues from a more clinical point of view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great that you do that. Because I think a lot of times, people have, been on the straight and narrow, to the degree that's possible for them. Nobody's perfect. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. Some people really are, like, to the letter perfect. But I think what happens is that they put in so much effort to be that good and they don't see results, and then they give up, or they say, well, in my genetics. You know, they come up with some reason why they, you know, they release themselves from torturing themselves anymore. And, you know, for me, I mean, my belief is that it does not have to be that hard. If you can get to the root causes, it really becomes easy, where, you know, being, you know, feeding yourself well and doing the emotional work actually really does pay dividends. So,
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it's just like, you know, I see with my clients, I mean, for most, you know, more often than not, once they stop eating too much food and they stop eating when they're not hungry, which means they're not using food to cope, the weight starts to come off.
right.
And should that not be the case, you know, there's a lot of other factors. I mean, if you're super stressed, you have the hormone, you know, cortisol, that
Yeah.
could prevent you from losing weight, right? If you're somebody who's either perimenopausal or menopausal, you've got all these other hormones that are coming into play that could be preventing your weight loss. You know, some women really start perimenopause early, and they would never in a million years think that it's something hormonal. You
Right.
know, so you know, sometimes it is helpful if you, in your heart of hearts, know that you've been eating a healthy diet, and you're consistent, and you're getting in some exercise, and you're drinking water, and you're getting good sleep. If you've got all of those factors in place and your body's still not releasing the weight, then I do believe it's time to go get some testing done,
Yeah.
right? And see if there's, you know, other answers that could be uncovered.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? I think you've got a great approach. I think that, you know, like everything you described is really the journey. You know, it's get your food dialed in, you know, see what's going on emotionally, and, you know, take care of the sleep, take care of the, you know, the basics, and then see where you're at. If you're not getting results, time to go clinical.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, sometimes it's a matter of really lifting up the hood and
Hmm.
seeing what's going on there, you know, and I always say to people, you know, imagine if you had one car, you know, when you were like 17 or 18 or 19 years old, and somebody said, here's a car and it's going to be your car for the rest of your life, right? You only get
Right.
one car. How would you take care of that car, right? You'd be changing the oil, you'd be changing the tires, you'd be putting in the best gas, you'd be washing it, right? You'd be making sure that everything stays shiny and new if this was going to be the one car for your rest of your life. But for some reason, we don't equate our bodies in the
Right.
same way. We've got one body that will take you through your whole entire life. Treat it, right, like you would treat something that you value,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So, so true. So, Lisa, I know you have an awesome gift for our listeners. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I have a 3-part video series called Change Your I Can'ts to I Cans. Because what I've discovered is that so many people that I work with, you know, will start coming, you know, working with me and creating. And, you know, there's one client specifically that I remember, you know, she would come into my office and she'd be like, I can't because, I can't because, I can't because. And she'd be like, it's not an excuse. And I'd say to her, well, if it's not an excuse, what is it? So because I heard that so often, I created a 3-part series, and there's some tools and there's some downloads to help you change your mindset from I can't to I can.
Awesome. What a wonderful gift. Thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your wisdom and your experience and your knowledge. I think this has been really helpful.
Well, thank you, Linda, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope our viewers get a lot out of this. I know I was so lit up by your approach. Um, anyway, all right. I'll see you all later on the next video. I hope you all have a good day. And Lisa, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Bye, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it.